sources tell CNN that President Trump is working the phones personally, trying to convince some of his most ardent MAGA supporters to pull back on their public attacks on Attorney General Pam Bondi over the Jeffrey Epstein case. This, as one of the president's fiercest supporters, conservative activist Laura Loomer told Politico, quote, there should be a special counsel appointed to do an independent investigation of the handling of the Epstein files so that people can feel like this issue is being investigated and perhaps take it out of the Attorney General's hands, because I don't think that she has been transparent or done a good job handling the issue. With us now, CNN senior legal analyst Elie Honig, who just so happens to be having a book about special counsels, a highly anticipated work coming out shortly. Elie, a special counsel in this case, what would that special counsel investigate? What are even the legal issues surrounding the Epstein case at this point?
Well, John, if there were a special counsel appointed, it would be unlike any other special counsel in our history, really, for two reasons. First of all, if you look back at the history, going back to Watergate, when it was called independent counsel, and through the ensuing 50 years, the law tells us that there's not supposed to be special counsel just because there's a messy situation or just because the Attorney General has done a bad job. It's supposed to be reserved for where there's a conflict of interest or other extraordinary circumstances. And historically, those conflicts of interest have always touched on the president himself or other powerful people around the president. Now, whether there is such a conflict of interest, presumably Pam Bondi might know. We wouldn't know at this moment. The other thing is special counsel historically and under the law is not supposed to be appointed just to tell a story, just to get to the bottom of something. It's supposed to be reserved for actual prosecutorial scenarios where there's some reason to think there should be criminal charges. The FBI last week, in its memo looking at the situation, said there's no basis to think anyone else should be charged. So look, this is Pam Bondi's decision, and it's going to be a tough one.
What are the actual outstanding legal issues in this case? When people are criticizing Pam Bondi, what is it? Is it about actual legal things?
It's a great question, right? It's important that we separate what people are super interested in, myself included, I think a lot of us in the media included, but where there's some actual legal work to be done. And the only real legal work that could be done here by DOJ would be a criminal investigation and charges. But again, if you look at that memo that the FBI put out last week, they said they went through 3 terabytes of information. That's a massive amount of information. And the memo says, basically, there's no reason to continue down this road. There's no reason to think that anyone should be criminally charged. Now, do people credit that? Do people credit Pam Bondi? That gets into a more complex question.
Right. This morning, there is new criticism from the right on the Justice Department's handling of the Jeffrey Epstein case. Politico is now reporting that conservative activist Laura Loomer is calling for the appointment of a special counsel to look into this. With us now, Congressman Mike Lawler, a Republican from New York. Congressman, thanks so much for being with us. What do you think a special counsel would accomplish, and how do you feel about it?
Look, as I've said, I'm not exactly one to subscribe to conspiracy theories. So from my vantage point, if somebody committed a crime, if somebody affiliated with Jeffrey Epstein committed a crime, they should be prosecuted. In the absence of that, frankly, this seems like a colossal waste of time and effort and frankly, a lot of nonsense. There are a lot of issues facing this country right now. A dead pedophile ain't one of them. And from my vantage point, you know, the world is a lot better off with Jeffrey Epstein no longer part of it. And as I said, if somebody did something, if there is evidence of a crime committed, then prosecute them. In the absence of that, what are we talking about?
You say there's a lot of nonsense. A lot of nonsense from whom? What do you think? Explain to me what you think the nonsense is here.
Well, frankly, the fact that you're even covering this. I mean, I don't even understand, frankly, why we're spending a lot of time on Jeffrey Epstein. You know, the fact is he was a pedophile who was arrested. He committed suicide, and his, fixer, if you will, is being prosecuted. So at the end of the day, if there are people who were part of any crimes, then they should be prosecuted. But in the absence of that, what exactly are we looking to do? The information is there. It is well documented what he did, and beyond that, what exactly are we looking for?
Understood. Just so you know, it's being covered because the deputy director of the FBI is said to have taken off work on Friday to protest the Justice Department own handling of this, and there have been shouting matches reported inside the White House on this. So whether or not you think it's important, apparently there are people who are quite agitated about it. CNN has learned that President Trump is personally making phone calls to try to get some of his most fervent supporters to back off their attacks on the administration over the Jeffrey Epstein case. And he was literally standing by his Attorney General Pam Bondi at a soccer game amid very public calls for her to be fired. What is notable and most unusual in the entire political history of Donald Trump is that he feels that he has to do this. This is an extremely rare and potentially potent split from his base.
It's not about just a pedophile ring and all that. This is about who governs us, right? And that's why it's not going to go away. You're going to lose 10% of the MAGA movement.
It's insulting our intelligence. Like, obviously, the intelligence community is trying to cover it up. Obviously, the Trump administration is trying to cover up.
The current DOJ under Pam Bondi is covering up crimes.
So this all has to do with a memo where the Justice Department said it will not release files on the Jeffrey Epstein sex trafficking case, found no evidence that his death was anything but a suicide, and that he had no so-called client list. This runs counter to theories and speculation that many conservative activists have trafficked in for years. Key questions today: what happens to Deputy FBI Director Dan Bongino, who had reportedly been considering resigning over the DOJ handling of this case? Let's get right to the White House. CNN's Elena Treen is there. What are you hearing at this moment, Elena?
Look, John, I mean, we've now seen President Donald Trump repeatedly try to tell his supporters, tell his base to move on from this. We first saw this last week when he was in his cabinet meeting next to Attorney General Pam Bondi, and he said, he tried to suggest really that questions on this, he called them a desecration, and tried to argue that Epstein was old news. Then we saw him on Saturday posting. He said, what's going on with my boys, and in some cases, gals? He said they're all going after the Attorney General, and that he's still supporting her and essentially saying, knock it off. And then we're learning, as you mentioned, John, that the president has been personally calling some of his fiercest supporters. That includes Charlie Kirk, the founder of Turning Point USA, which is really where we saw all of these big MAGA personalities and conservatives kind of coalesce around this event that they held in Florida this weekend. I caught up with Donny O'Sullivan, our colleague who attended it. He said he did not speak with one person there, one Trump supporter, who said that they did not want to see more information, have more revealed about the Epstein case. And this is really, you put it, I think, very eloquently, this is a major break between Donald Trump and his base that we really haven't seen, particularly ever since Trump's revival. Normally when the president tries to give them a message and tells them to move on, they tend to believe him. But what's going on here is, this is kind of at odds with the president's kind of brand of being a teller of uncomfortable truths and being very transparent, even about some of the most controversial topics. But this is not something that is going away. We've now heard, you played that clip of Steve Bannon. I've been talking with him a lot. He said this is something that is not going away. People are very, very angry of this. Both he and Laura Loomer, of course, someone who's also very influential, including on President Donald Trump. She's met personally with the president here at the White House. Both of them now saying they believe that a special prosecutor should be appointed to go over what has been happening and how Attorney General Pam Bondi has actually handled these files. All to say, despite the White House and really the president himself trying to urge his supporters to move on from this, this is something that is not going to go away easily. And it also comes, as we know, that people here in the White House themselves, this isn't just people on the outside, really feeling like the way that this was handled was mismanaged. And there's a lot of frustration here with how Pam Bondi has really tried to, message all of this.
Yeah, look, we'll see where this goes, but I don't think there's any denying at this point. It's just different. This is different than we have seen before with this president as a politician. Elena Treen at the White House this morning. Thank you very much.